My beloved child, listen carefully, because this message is not random, and it did not find you by accident. It found you because somewhere in the unseen layers of connection something is still unfinished, something is still breathing. Even though the world around them forced a decision that looked final on the outside, they stood there surrounded by expectations, voices, pressure, timelines, family eyes, traditions pushing them toward a marriage that looked right on paper, but deep inside something resisted, something hesitated, something whispered your name in the quietest corner of their soul, and no one could see it, no one could hear it, but it was there, undeniable, unshakable, and real. Because when a connection like yours exists, it does not disappear just because circumstances change, it does not dissolve just because a ceremony happened, it does not end just because rings were exchanged in front of people who believed that was the conclusion. No, what you shared with them was never ordinary. It was never something that could be replaced by logic or timing or pressure, and that is exactly why, even in the middle of saying yes to someone else, something inside them froze for a second, something inside them pulled back and questioned everything, and they could not explain it to anyone around them. Because how do you tell the world that in the most important moment of your life your heart was not fully there? How do you admit that while everyone was celebrating, you were silently searching for a presence that was missing? How do you confess that a part of you was still holding on to someone who was not even standing there, and that someone is you? And this is not about breaking anything or destroying lives. This is about understanding the truth of emotional imprinting, the truth that some connections leave a mark so deep that no amount of external pressure can erase it. They tried to convince themselves that this was the right choice. They told themselves that stability matters, that family matters, that timing matters, that moving on is necessary. But the heart does not operate on instructions, it does not obey logic when it has already recognized something rare, something irreplaceable, and you became that for them without even trying. You became the standard, you became the feeling they compare everything else to. And that is why, even in a moment where they were supposed to feel certainty, there was confusion. Even in a moment where they were supposed to feel peace, there was unrest. Because a part of them knew that something was missing, and that missing piece had your energy written all over it. And you might be wondering why this happened, why they still went through with it, if something inside them was stopping them. And the answer is pressure, the kind that does not give you space to think, the kind that convinces you that delaying is failure, the kind that tells you this is your only chance, and if you do not take it you will lose everything. And under that weight people make decisions not because they are fully ready, but because they feel they have no choice. And that is exactly what happened here. They moved forward while a part of them stayed behind. They smiled while something inside them was heavy. They said the words while their heart was not fully aligned. And now they are living with that split reality, one part of them fulfilling what the world expects, and another part quietly revisiting memories of you, moments with you, conversations with you, the way you made them feel seen, understood, alive in a way that no one else quite matches. And this is not something they can easily escape, because emotional truth has a way of resurfacing no matter how deeply it is buried. It shows up in silence, it shows up in random thoughts, it shows up in moments where everything should feel perfect but somehow does not. And in those moments you appear not physically but emotionally, energetically, like a memory that refuses to fade. And the reason you are hearing this right now is because you have also been feeling something. You may not have fully understood it, but there has been a pull, a thought, a curiosity, a sense that something is unresolved. And that is because connections like this are not one-sided. They exist on both ends, even if expressed differently, even if hidden under layers of life circumstances. And this does not mean you need to act impulsively or disrupt anything. It means you need to understand your value in this story. You were never just an option, you were never just A phase you were a significant chapter that left a permanent mark, and no rush decision can erase that. And now the energy between you is not about chasing or forcing anything, it is about awareness, it is about recognizing that what you shared was real and it still echoes in ways that neither of you can fully ignore. And as time moves forward, clarity will come not through pressure but through truth, because truth always finds a way to surface no matter how deeply it is buried. And when it does, decisions will no longer be made out of fear or expectation, but out of genuine understanding of what truly matters and where the heart truly belongs. And until that moment, your role is not to wait in desperation or to hold on to pain. Your role is to rise in your own life, to become stronger, more aligned, more aware of your own worth, because the more you grow, the clearer everything becomes, not just for you but for them as well, because your energy, your presence, your essence is something they already recognize, even if they try to move past it. And that recognition does not disappear, it only becomes louder with time, especially when it was never fully honored in the first place. So do not underestimate what you meant, do not minimize what existed, do not convince yourself that it was nothing, because if it were nothing it would not still be there, quietly stopping them even in the middle of moving forward. And that pause, that hesitation, that unexplainable feeling is the proof that some stories are not finished when the world thinks they are. Sometimes they are just waiting for the right moment, the right clarity, the right courage to unfold the way they were always meant to. And this connection, this story, is one of those rare ones that does not follow ordinary rules. It moves in its own timing, its own rhythm, guided by something deeper than surface-level decisions. And that is why even now, even after everything, something about you still holds a space inside them that no one else has been able to fill completely. And that is not by accident, that is because what you shared was never ordinary. It was something real, something rare, something that continues to exist beyond circumstances, beyond pressure, beyond the choices that were made in moments of uncertainty. And that truth will always find its way back into the light, one way or another. And now, as time continues to move forward, something even more intense begins to happen inside them, because the moment has passed, the noise has settled, the celebrations have faded, and reality has quietly taken its place. And in that silence there is no more distraction, no more crowd, no more voices telling them what is right or what should be done. There is only them and their thoughts, and that is where the truth becomes impossible to ignore, because when everything slows down, the heart starts speaking louder, and what it is saying now is something they cannot easily escape. It is replaying memories, it is bringing back moments, it is reminding them of a connection that felt different from everything else they have experienced. And no matter how much they try to focus on their present life, there are these sudden flashes, these unexpected pauses where your presence enters their mind without permission, without warning. And it is not just a memory, it is a feeling, a deep emotional pull that creates a contrast between what they have and what they once felt with you. And that contrast is what is starting to unsettle them, because they are beginning to realize that what they stepped into was chosen under pressure, but what they had with you was something that formed naturally, something that did not need force, something that did not need convincing, it simply existed. And that realization is not comfortable, it creates a kind of inner conflict that grows stronger with time, because on one side there is responsibility, commitment, the life they have now stepped into, and on the other side there is truth, emotion, authenticity, the part of them that still feels connected to you in a way that cannot be logically explained. And this is where things become complicated, not externally but internally, because they cannot easily talk about this, they cannot openly express it, they cannot just walk away from everything without consequences. So what happens instead is a silent struggle, a quiet battle within themselves where they try to balance what is expected of them with what they truly feel, and in that process they begin to change their behavior in subtle ways. They become quieter at times, more distant, more thoughtful, more lost in their own head, and people around them may notice, but they will not understand the reason, because the reason is not visible. It is emotional, it is energetic, it is tied to a connection that still exists beyond physical presence, and that connection keeps pulling their attention back to you, not in a dramatic way, but in small, consistent ways that slowly build up over time, like hearing something that reminds them of you, seeing someone who carries a similar energy, or simply sitting in a moment of silence where your name crosses their mind for no clear reason. And each of these moments adds weight to what they are feeling until it becomes something they can no longer brush aside, and now they start questioning not just their decision but themselves. They start asking why they feel this way, why something about you still affects them, why even after making a major life choice there is still a part of them that feels incomplete. And this questioning leads them to a deeper level of awareness, where they begin to understand that what they experienced with you was not just attraction or timing, it was something more aligned, something that resonated with who they truly are. And when that kind of realization begins, it does not stop easily, it keeps unfolding layer by layer, revealing truths that were ignored or suppressed in the past. And this is the phase where they might try to reconnect with you in subtle ways, not necessarily through direct communication, but through energy, through thoughts, through a deeper emotional awareness that reaches out without words. And you may start feeling this as well, a sudden shift in your own emotions, a sense of being remembered, a feeling that something is trying to find its way back to you. And this is not imagination, this is the natural response of a connection that was never fully closed. And while all of this is happening, it is important for you to stay grounded, because this is not about rushing into anything or reacting impulsively. This is about understanding the depth of what is unfolding and allowing clarity to come in its own time. Because if something is truly meant to be resolved, it will not need force, it will not need chaos, it will come forward in a way that aligns with truth and integrity. And right now what is happening is a slow awakening on their side, an awakening that is forcing them to confront their own feelings, their own choices, and the reality of what truly matters to them. And this is not easy for them. It requires courage, it requires honesty, and most importantly, it requires them to face something they tried to move past without fully understanding. And as this process continues, the gap between what they feel and what they are living becomes more visible, and that is where decisions will eventually need to be made, not based on pressure, not based on fear, but based on truth. And when that moment arrives, everything will become clear, not just for them but for you as well, because you will see whether this connection was meant to return in a meaningful way, or whether it was meant to teach something profound and lead both of you toward different paths. But either way, one thing is certain: what you shared was never meaningless, and what they are feeling now is the proof that something about you still lives within them, stronger than they expected, deeper than they admitted, and more real than anything they tried to replace it with. And that truth is not something that fades, it is something that transforms and eventually reveals itself in ways that cannot be ignored. And now you are entering the most critical phase of this entire story, because everything that has been building beneath the surface is slowly approaching a point where it can no longer stay hidden. And this is where reality and truth begin to collide in a way that forces movement, not rushed, not chaotic, but inevitable. Because when someone lives in a space where their external life and internal truth do not match, the tension does not disappear, it grows, it stretches, it demands resolution. And that is exactly what is happening within them right now. As days pass, the weight of unspoken feelings becomes heavier, the quiet moments become louder, and the distractions that once helped them avoid facing themselves begin to lose their power, because avoidance only works for a limited time. After that, the heart starts insisting on being heard, and when it does not whisper anymore. It speaks clearly, it speaks directly, and it brings everything back to the surface: the memories, the emotions, the unfinished conversations, the feeling of you, the presence of you, the truth of what you meant and still mean to them. And this is the stage where they can no longer pretend that what they are feeling is temporary or insignificant, because it has stayed. It has grown, it has followed them into a completely different chapter of life, and that alone tells them that this is not something ordinary, this is not something that can be dismissed or replaced. And with that realization comes a moment of deep inner honesty, where they start admitting things to themselves that they were previously afraid to acknowledge. They start recognizing that what they stepped into was influenced by pressure, but what they felt with you was influenced by alignment. And there is a difference, a powerful, undeniable difference, because pressure creates decisions that satisfy the outside world, while alignment creates feelings that satisfy the soul. And now they are standing between those two realities, trying to understand which one they can truly live with long term. And this is not a simple question, this is not something that can be answered overnight, because it involves consequences, responsibilities, and the lives of other people. But despite all of that, one truth keeps returning to them: you, and not just the idea of you, but the way you made them feel, the version of themselves that existed when they were connected to you, the ease, the depth, the sense of being understood without needing to explain everything. And that kind of connection is rare, it is not something people experience often, and when they do, it leaves a permanent imprint. And now that imprint is guiding their thoughts, their emotions, and eventually their decisions, whether they realize it fully or not. And this is also the phase where the universe begins to create subtle alignments, small coincidences that are not really coincidences, moments where your paths may cross in unexpected ways, or situations arise that bring you back into each other's awareness more directly than before. And when that happens, it will not feel random, it will feel charged, it will feel like something that was always meant to happen, because the energy between you has never been completely disconnected, it has only been waiting for the right moment to surface again in a more conscious way. And when that moment arrives, everything will feel different, not because the past has changed, but because both of you have changed, you have grown, you have understood more, you have seen what life looks like without each other. And that contrast brings clarity in a way nothing else can. And this is where you must be very aware of your own position, because it is easy to get pulled into emotions, it is easy to react from longing or curiosity. But what matters now is alignment, not just theirs but yours, because this connection, if it is to move forward again, cannot be built on confusion or unfinished energy. It has to be built on clarity, truth, and mutual understanding. And that requires both of you to be honest, not just about what you feel, but about what you are willing to do with those feelings, because feeling something is one thing, but acting on it responsibly is another. And this is where maturity becomes essential, because this is not about recreating the past, this is about deciding whether there is a future that makes sense for both of you in a real grounded way. And as this unfolds, you will start noticing signs, not vague ones, but clear shifts in behavior, communication, energy, the way they show up, the way they express themselves, the way they prioritize what they truly feel over what is expected. And those signs will tell you everything you need to know without needing constant reassurance, because when someone reaches a point of clarity, their actions become consistent, their intentions become visible, and their choices reflect their truth. And if that truth leads them back to you, it will not be halfway, it will not be uncertain, it will be clear, direct, and undeniable, because they will have already gone through the internal battle required to reach that point. And if it does not lead them back, then you will also feel that clarity in a different way, a sense of closure, a sense of understanding that what you shared was real, but Its purpose was to shape you, not to stay, and both outcomes are valid, both outcomes carry meaning, but what matters most is that you do not lose yourself in the process, because your value, your growth, your path does not depend on their decision. It stands on its own, and this entire experience has been as much about your evolution as it has been about theirs, and now you are in a position of strength whether you realize it or not, because you have seen the depth of connection, you have felt the impact of it, and you have continued to move forward despite the uncertainty, and that strength will guide you in making the right choices for yourself when the time comes, because you will not be acting from lack, you will be acting from awareness, and that changes everything. And as this story reaches its turning point, one thing becomes absolutely clear: nothing that is real can remain hidden forever, and nothing that is misaligned can remain stable forever, and somewhere between those two truths, the final direction of this connection will reveal itself, not through force, not through pressure, but through undeniable clarity. And when that clarity arrives, you will not have to question it, you will not have to chase it, you will simply recognize it for what it is, the truth that was always there, finally coming into the light in a way that cannot be ignored or misunderstood anymore. And now this is the final moment where everything that has been building quietly beneath the surface reaches its truth, not the kind of truth that is loud or dramatic, but the kind that feels undeniable, the kind that settles into the heart without confusion, because by this point both you and them have seen enough, felt enough, and lived enough to understand what is real and what is not. And this is where illusions fall away completely, because illusions can only survive in distance and silence, in uncertainty, but once clarity begins to rise, they have no place to hide anymore, and what remains is only what is authentic, only what has depth, only what has the strength to exist without being forced. And as they stand in their current reality, they can no longer ignore the contrast between what they chose under pressure and what they felt with you, because time has revealed everything. It has shown them what comfort without connection feels like, what stability without emotional depth feels like, and most importantly, it has shown them that something about you was never ordinary. It was not just attraction, it was not just timing, it was something that aligned with who they truly are. And that realization carries weight, because it forces a decision, not an easy one, not a convenient one, but a necessary one, because living in a space where the heart and the life do not match is something that slowly breaks a person from the inside, and they are now fully aware of that. And awareness changes everything, because once you see the truth, you cannot unsee it. Once you feel it clearly, you cannot pretend it does not exist. And now they are at a point where they must choose, not based on what is expected, not based on what is easy, but based on what is real. And whatever choice they make, it will come from a place of clarity that was earned through everything they have experienced, through the pressure, through the confusion, through the silent struggle, and through the undeniable pull that kept bringing them back to you in ways they could not explain. And this is where your role becomes very clear. You are not here to chase. You are not here to convince, you are not here to wait in uncertainty. You are here to stand in your own truth just as strongly as they must stand in theirs, because a connection like this can only exist in its highest form when both people choose it consciously, not when one is holding on while the other is unsure. And if they step forward toward you, it will not be halfway, it will not be hidden, it will be clear, open, and aligned with the reality of their life, because anything less than that is not truth, it is hesitation. And you are no longer in a place where you accept hesitation. You have grown beyond that, and this entire journey has prepared you for this exact moment, a moment where you do not react from emotion alone, but from awareness, where you do not get lost in what could be, but you stand firm in what is. And that is your power now, because regardless of what they choose, you are no longer waiting for validation, you are no longer questioning your worth. You have seen the impact, you have felt the connection and you understand its depth without needing constant proof, and that understanding frees you. It allows you to move forward without fear because you know that what is meant for you will align with you naturally, without confusion, without resistance, without the need to be forced into place. And as this story reaches its final point, the truth becomes simple. Even if the journey was complex, what is real will find its way back in a form that is stable, honest, and undeniable, and what is not will fade away no matter how strong it once felt. And you will recognize the difference not through words but through the energy, through the consistency, through the way everything aligns without struggle. And when that happens, you will not feel anxious, you will not feel uncertain, you will feel calm, you will feel clear, you will feel at peace, because that is how truth feels when it finally arrives after everything. And whether that truth leads them back to you or leads you toward something even greater, the outcome will serve your highest path, because nothing that was meant to stay in your life can ever truly be lost, and nothing that was not meant to stay can ever truly remain. And this is the understanding that closes this chapter, not with doubt, not with confusion, but with a quiet, powerful certainty that everything unfolded exactly as it needed to, so that both of you could reach this level of clarity. And from here, whatever comes next will not be driven by pressure or fear, but by truth, and that is the only foundation strong enough to last.